Well, good day, good morning, good evening, whenever you're watching this. My name is Jill. This is the next episode in my first winter off-grid. Lessons I've learned, things I'm going to pass on. This video, I'm just going to cover a bunch of little stuff that doesn't really warrant a full video. And with that, I suggest you pause, get pencil and paper so that you can write some things down, see what works for you. I'm not a definitive guide, but I think there's a lot of things that we learn and experience in our first time that the experts forget was an issue. So I'm bringing this to you because it was my first winter off-grid in the mountains. So we're going to take a deep breath. I hope you learned something, and we will see you on the other side. Alright, so this video, I just want to go over some of the little things. The first one I wanted to go over was internet and communication. And as I had mentioned in a previous video, this was a real bugger for me because I don't have regular electricity, so I can't draw a lot of power. And I'm in an area that only has one service provider. So while there's always lots of solutions, mine were extremely limited. And one of the decisions, I've made coming out of this is I don't want to buy more junk. So if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you can buy a cell phone booster, but those are really expensive. You can buy all kinds of things to solve your problems. So the good news is what I've learned is that with every passing year, there's more technology. The data gets cheaper. In between just the few months I was here, my hotspot, I had to buy a hotspot, and data was $50 for 10 gigabytes to now I can get $10 for 10 gigabytes, and I can use my phone as a hotspot. So I have an unlimited data plan, and I'm paying less for those two than I would have, a year ago. So technology isn't something that you can really talk about because it changes so fast. But even out here in the middle of nowhere, if I get on the internet before the sun rises, the sun does something to disturb it. I don't have any problem connecting, but the minute the sun comes up or the wind starts blowing or during the day, it's all bets are off. So in addition to the heat at 3 a.m., if I wanted to do upload or download or watch video, I had to be up at 3 a.m. So that's kind of a pain in the butt. I happen to like to be up early, so it wasn't as big an issue for me. It might be for you, unless you're a night owl. I did not try it at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., so I'm not sure how it is when the lights go down. So that was the biggest thing, that it took me a while to find the right equipment, to find the right providers, to find the right libraries, to find the right equipment, provider, plans, and alternative sources. But eventually, I've been able to cobble something together. It doesn't allow me to function normally out in the world because I hate my phone, but other people who are good on their phones, they do just fine. It is a personal issue. It is not an other people issue. The next thing I wanted to bring up was hygiene and staying clean. And one of the things that came up for me here, which has been an ongoing issue, but I kind of hit a wall with it this year, is that it's much more difficult to stay clean. I've talked about that in previous videos, how important it is if you're homeless to try to be as clean as possible, with your nails and your clothes. But, I am so sick of wearing my dirty clothes, and when it gets muddy, all bets are off. So that has been an ongoing issue. So if you're going off-grid and you're somewhere where you're going to have a lot of mud, plan accordingly, because everything is going to be filthy, especially if you have a dog. And so the good thing about the short hair is it makes it much easier. I could actually wash it inside this year, where normally I have to go outside no matter what temperature it is to wash my hair. So the short hair made it a lot easier to be clean. It's time again, but I'm in here making videos instead. So it is tough to stay clean. This morning my washcloth was frozen. It is difficult to stay on top of those things. It's difficult to get your clothes clean. If you've ever washed your clothes by hand, It's a lot of work. If you've washed your clothes by hand without running water, oh my God. The one thing that takes up a huge amount of water isn't bathing, it isn't drinking, it isn't cooking, it's not even washing the dishes. It is washing your clothes. So one of the things that people do is they don't wash their clothes that often because it is so hard to get your clothes clean on a regular basis if you're out in the middle of nowhere hauling water. One of the things that I've observed for myself over this last 10-year process is, when I lived in civilization, I wore my clothes once, and I would never buy thrift store clothes. And now I have progressively moved to wearing them for longer, not my underclothes, but my outer clothes, longer and longer and longer periods of time, and more thrift store clothes, because I ruin everything. I ruin shoes, I ruin everything I wear. So that has been probably one of the biggest disappointments, is not being able to dress in anything but junky clothes because I ruin everything. But if I only pay $1 for it, I don't feel so bad. So getting clean was a bigger challenge here because I didn't have as good a system as I set up back in the other homestead, but but I also had access to water every day. I do not have access to water here every day, so it makes it much more complex when you have to drive away and haul your water in. Just something to think about if you're going off grid. The next thing I want to talk about is health and medical care. I actually have access to a pretty decent hospital not too far away from here, but I think that's one of the things people don't take into consideration when they start thinking about being off-grid or nomadic or out in the middle of nowhere. I've talked about this in previous videos about RV life and things like that, but I just want to reiterate, especially as I'm aging and more things are feeling off. If you have a lot of medical problems, if you have chronic medical problems, you aren't going to do well in these kinds of situations because if the grid goes down, how are you going to get there? How are you going to get your medications? How are you going to do all those things? And one of the advantages that I have, I think that most people don't, is I have such a strong working knowledge of prevention and how to manage things out of the medical system, through alternative healing techniques and things like that. It's a little bit easier for me than I think most people. So really important to factor in your health, your fitness, and your medical needs. And the big thing that I put in that book, Planning for Your Post-50 Life, which I will reiterate, is do not plan your 70-plus future on your 40 to 50-year-old body. And I think so many people come out and start this lifestyle in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s. But once you hit 70, 75 plus, that's going to be a really different experience. And I really got a huge eye-opener on this setup that I have in the horse trailer. It will totally not work. It doesn't work for me now. It's certainly not going to work for me 20 years from now. So FYI, plan accordingly. And the last thing I want to talk about is socialization. The quick version is that I can really see that most off-grid people are farmer types. They're the same thing as the farmer, the ranchers. The homestead off-grid mentality either has that lone wolf farmer attitude or the family man farmer attitude. But it's much more farmer than hunter-gatherer. And I say that as being different in that, one of my big takeaways was watching, the couple people that are close by, how much work there is to do on their homesteads and their environments, and they've been at it for years, and they're probably going to be at it forever. And I'm thinking, I am pissed off. I have to just redo my one little tiny trailer stuff. They have to keep working on things constantly. In fact, it even came up that they have to do everything twice, and I'm like, I have to do everything twice, so plan on doing everything twice. I have to redo all the insulation in here. So that was kind of a big eye-opener, and that there is a lot of lone wolf, like I don't want to interact socially. And so if you're a very social person and you're moving out by yourself into a community of people who don't want to talk to anybody, it's going to be different. It wasn't like that where I was from, because that wasn't an off-grid mentality in a small town. Most small towns have a normal introvert-extrovert ratio. I would say the off-grid world is way more introvert, with a few exceptions. And while that may be okay on the one hand, it's not really on the other hand, because the bottom line is you need help. You just can't do everything by yourself all the time in every experience. If you have one car and you're 10 miles from civilization, you need somebody to drive you if something goes wrong with your car. So I'm not a big fan of the whole lone wolf, I can do it mentality. And it's very isolating, and that's been one of the big negatives for me here, is not having any human contact. There's nobody to talk to because nobody wants to talk. And it isn't, and there's very few people to pick from. And I did some initiating there's a horse farm and some other stuff around here, and there was just no connection. And so I'm pretty good at building networks, done nothing but hit my head on the wall in this location. So I'm hoping the next place I go, things go a little bit better. We'll see. So I think that'll be it for this video. Just a little few things to think about. So we're going to take a deep breath, and if you want to learn more, there should be a playlist down below, if not now, soon. And so with that, deep breath, and I will see you next time.